Nice.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hey.
Hello.
I sent the email out, but I feel like the Discord, gotta get the Discord out. People should see that event detail, but. Hello, everybody who's watching this after the live stream. This one's for you.
This one is, yeah, exactly.
Oh, we got 9 users from YouTube.
Nice. Awesome.
Everybody.
Let me just pull open the thing. All right, but as we're going, I have this interesting riff. I was thinking about this in the shower today.
Nice.
I was in the shower thought incoming. Watch out. Hopefully it's an okay one. I was thinking about microwaves. And I'm sure that when microwaves first came out, people were like, oh my God, like time to get rid of the oven. Time to throw away the oven. But instead, right, everyone just now has both. And they kind of do the same thing, but in very different ways. One takes a long time and gets food tasting a certain way, just the way you like it. One is quick and used way more often. And I was thinking about microwaves and ovens in the context of podcasting and AI podcasts. How for so long, you have this thing that takes a lot of work, a lot of time, multiple people, lots of chopping, lots of cooking. But then comes along the microwave, this thing that gets you something super quick.
Are you saying that we're the microwave of podcasting?
I think we're the microwave.
I mean,
I think JellyPod is the microwave.
I'll take
podcasting.
it, especially over. I'll take it over the air fryer and toaster oven stuff. You know, way overhyped.
Totally.
That's like way overhyped. So,
but every house comes with an oven, right? And like I feel like ovens are often built into the house, so every house comes with an oven. But like everyone's got a microwave. Dorm rooms, kitchenettes. You know, it's sort of opened up entirely new use cases. You wouldn't put an oven in your bedroom, but you would totally put a microwave in your bedroom.
Yeah.
So weird things like that that I think about in the shower.
I wonder what other things you think about in the shower. It's great.
You're giving me this idea about for our like loading and stuff. You put a microwave animation. We're cooking your podcast or something, and just just a bunch of like. Yeah, it's just a frozen meal rotating, or a podcast.
You know, just side tangent on microwaves too. I mean, like, you guys ever listen or watch the YouTube channel Tom Scott, like Computer File? He has like this old, he has this video from like, I don't know, maybe 5, 8 years, 10 years ago now, where he interviewed the founder or the creator of the microwave, and the story about the invention of the microwave is nuts. It's like they actually built the microwave to reanimate frozen hamsters.
Jeez.
And that was so wild. But essentially back in like the 50s or whatever it is, when the microwave was first invented, there was this whole thing around like cryogenics and freezing. And like back, if you look at any space novels back in the 50s, a lot of them are about, you know, can we freeze people and ship them off into space and like all the cryogenics. And essentially that was stemmed from the fact that in the 50s, there was a lot of scientific research around, can you freeze things and bring them back to life? Right. And they were actually able to freeze hamsters in a microwave, and like rodents and small animals, freeze them to death. Like they're frozen, and then put them in a microwave and bring them back to life. It was wild. And they were able to freeze it again and bring it back to life. And they try to scale it up, but eventually the size of the animal, due to how small the microwaves are, wasn't able to thaw the animal as quickly as it needed to be able to stay alive. And then it just didn't scale past a hamster. But don't try it at home. Don't freeze your hamster and put it in the microwave. But that's the story. So really crazy.
Super interesting. Yeah.
Weird. See, I've been reanimating my frozen hamsters using the oven.
I put my cats there.
That's the standard way. That's the standard way to do things. I'd never even thought about doing it in a microwave. You gotta bring them back, you know, slow and steady, you know.
Right.
People tell me.
That's funny.
Um,
Well, super cool. This is Bilal. I know this is your second weekly Wednesday, and like officially, I guess, first week here. How's everything been?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's great. Just getting into the flow of things. I feel, still getting used to, but I feel like I'm getting into a rhythm now. So that's always great. How are
nice,
you guys
nice.
feeling? Hopefully I haven't, you know, freaked you guys out too much, this
Oh,
coming
it's
in.
been great. It's
no,
been great. I've loved it.
it's been
It's
awesome.
seeing. I get to review some more code. I get to review some code. I get to send some code over for review, and that's kind of cool too. Even though like I could just push like these things, it's like no. Here's a review, just so you have the context on like what's happening, which is awesome. So that makes me super excited. And then I have noticed that some people are liking the clones a little bit better. So that's cool because last week you made that change where
Nice.
we automatically
N-
remove
n-
background noise. So did we talk about that
Yeah.
last week on the Weekly Wednesday?
Yeah, I think we did because that happened the first time. But we also now should have the preview host conversations pushed,
Mhm.
so you can now before you make a podcast, you can like just play around with the host, so what it feels like if for them to have a conversation, which I think is super powerful. And hopefully we'll have that soon for the podcast generator page as well. That was Jason's initiative there, so very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, wait,
Yeah,
dig
yeah.
into that a little bit more about like the preview host, like how does somebody access that? Where like what was the problem there? Like what was our thought process around that?
Yeah, I think the big thing, I think the users would, you guys told me was that they would like, we could always sample a voice individually, but sometimes they would select a couple of hosts and it would just not vibe well. It's like peanut butter jelly versus, oil and water. And so the idea was we would just have a preview host button when you select host on the edit podcast or the new podcast screen. And that way you can see, what a dynamic would look like. And um, a little cool thing we did was we didn't just like put any conversation. We actually based on the backstories of the hosts and their voices, we will generate a dynamic conversation which is more natural to them. So you can see, okay, this is how the back and forth would have looked like, if I generate the full podcast. And it's free, so it won't consume any credits. So you can do it as much as you like and select the perfect two hosts before moving forward.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's huge. It's huge. So many times I heard from folks when they, they get all the way to the end of the episode, they finish their script, they love the script, but they're like, "Ooh, I just want to change one of the voices. It wasn't right for me." So by doing that at the very beginning, now we can make sure that final step is just pure magic, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's super cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I tried it out once, but the next podcast I do, I select new hosts. I have my two hosts I like right now, and so it's like now I have to create a new podcast with some new hosts. I have one guy. His name's Bingo. He's an Australian outback cowboy, and then there's
Nice.
that's my favorite. It's super. Cool.
Oh, this is your character for the podcast, like the host?
Yeah, I have a
And
NASA
oh,
podcast.
nice, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
so it talks
Oh,
about
that's awesome.
space and like planets and all these space news and things, and that's like the one I use for testing mainly. But it's an Australian like cowboy kind of someone that doesn't sound that intelligent talking about like astrophysics and
Oh, I love that. I love
uh,
that.
yeah,
That's awesome.
that one's that. And for everyone out here, like all of the people watching the stream right now, I know it's been about 2 weeks since the launch week and all the things that we released there. If you have any feedback on like anything then, like web search or custom domains or any of that stuff that's kind of come out in the last few weeks, I'd love to hear some feedback. Or questions about like your experience so far, if you're willing to share. So just pop some comments in if you're here, and we'll answer them as we go. So
one thing that actually last night I randomly did because I got curious, as people, as questions trickle in, is I took a look at which of the announcement blog posts from launch week ended up converting the most customers. And audiograms was number one. So clearly people would see audiograms and then, want more of it. And then just one customer off was guest clones. So those two It was pretty cool.
Why do you think that is? I mean, like, I know audiograms were day one, and that was a pretty big one. I mean, like everybody kind of was asking, "Hey, can we have video?" But
there's a lot of confounding stuff. Like, yeah. I mean, there's like we know about biases, so we know about primacy and recency bias and primacy bias. So like the first and the last thing are most remembered. So there's that. There's the fact that the first email got the most engagement, I'm guessing, because it's like the first one, and then the next one after that was the last one. So it's like it could be that it wasn't guest clones. It was just, oh wow, these guys released 5 features in 5 days. I'm going to join this group. And there's a question right now about indexing JellyPod podcasts in Google. That's funny. Uncanny timing. We were just talking about this yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's Google kind of like we try to put some stuff into your podcast website just so it gets picked up easier. So, having the transcript there is just more content for it to get picked up. If you're using a JellyPod subdomain, I don't know, I can't confirm this, but it seems like it latches on to our domain authority a little bit. So, like, it might be more likely to get picked up by Google because it's like, let's say, yourpodcast.jellypod.ai. But if you use a custom domain that's like completely yours without any existing domain authority with Google, it might be a reason why. So I'm not sure if that's the case there.
And if it's a new one, it'll take time for you to build authority and stuff. That's just how it is. And
Right.
indexing does not guarantee getting picked up and ranked. That takes a while. Google has their own algo. On our end, we're obviously going to make sure what we can help is with the technical SEO stuff, like it's fast, the title, the description, the open graph, and the RSS, etc. All that is there for you. But it does take a while for you to build up that ranking in Google.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, it's nothing like it's pretty much completely out of our control. Like Google, it was hard for us like to know, even just for JellyPod or AI podcasting or AI podcast generator, like all those keywords to get anywhere on the first page. So SEO is always a hard thing. The better thing that I think is more important is getting picked up on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts and growing on those channels, because you're not competing with every website on the internet. You're just competing with other podcasts. So even though the indexing and the search functionality on Apple and Spotify aren't necessarily as like robust as Google, and like it doesn't like push. It's not as much of a pushing mechanism. It's more of like, hey, you're searching for a podcast, you could find this one. But it's hard. I mean, I think we want to build things to make it easier for you to grow your podcast.
And we're exploring one solution, right, for SEO that we were talking about yesterday. It's just a matter of like prioritizing that and getting that.
Yeah, and I think like that, like including it in sitemaps here, are just pros and cons, and that just pretty much is a indicator to Google whether or not something exists at some location. But
that was what some of this when I was looking through a few of the podcasts yesterday about which ones were indexed and which ones were not. Some of the ones they would often say like found, but like no sitemaps pointing to it. So it would, but
right, that makes sense. So I mean, just to wrap that up here, like we'll take a look and just try to keep on improving this, but we have no really good answer on helping your podcast rise the ranks of Google right now. Yeah.
The more episodes on your podcast, because it's the podcast that gets picked up on the subdomains once it does. So the more episodes you can get, the more, and as long as it's like related keywords, so you're speaking on a topic and you're speaking authoritatively, things like that will help you. So just staying consistent as well.
And this is kind of related. This is something that released last week. At the end of last week, one of our users, I think they're a cruise line. They just didn't want their transcript showing. So this actually probably would hurt your SEO. But for anyone out there that you publish your podcast, you have your video, your audiogram there, and you want people just to be listening and watching the video and engaged with that content, you can now turn off the visibility of the transcript below. So in your podcast settings, if you go to edit podcast under advanced settings, there's going to be a little checkbox there that'll be by default checked. It says show transcript on your podcast episode page. But if for any reason you want to turn that off and you just don't want your transcript to be shown, just uncheck that box, and no transcript will be there. And if that's something you want. So just a little Easter egg there, because that's not going to be on our changelog. It's just a little small feature that we released.
Sweet. There's a question about, well, this is actually really funny, from the Peach Basket, a cool basketball blog. Any NBA fans, check it out, the Peach Basket. But I'm curious. It's funny that he's saying this. So he's talking about how the intro music is abruptly starting and stopping. What's funny is we usually hear feedback in the opposite direction, right?
Yeah.
We usually hear that like the intro is like is bleeding in, as you call it, too slowly. So it's funny that yours goes abrupt.
Yeah. It comes down to probably the because I was playing around with the podcast, and I think it really comes down to the choice of music and then how long is your intro. Because if it's short, then it might feel abrupt because it's as a percentage, the bleed is more, right? So it's such a personalized thing, and we're, I mean, we're constantly talking about this, so it may be we're going to give you more control over that, or at the same time we don't want to give you a million dials, so you're like you have to set everything, but it's a trade-off for sure.
Yeah, totally. And there's going to be some changes that come out, like huge changes very soon, that allow you just to drag audio into any area between speech blocks. Intro will work just how it is currently, where you drag the intro music in to that, or you click that button to add intro music. Yeah, so just like there'll be some more adjustments and more improvements to like intro, outro music, and blending and crossfading and things. So
exciting.
Sweet. And then we have this Branch. Branch, he was here last week, I think. I remember your name. It's awesome. Great to see you again. And thanks for all the questions, everybody. It's awesome. I love seeing this feed just pinging us right here. It's great.
Ever since Bilal joined, people have been very active in the chat. I think Bilal is paying these people to be here.
I mean, you guys hired me to be the pretty face of the brand, right?
Yes, it's worked.
Yeah.
No, these guys are OGs. I remember when we hit like 1,000 or 10,000, you'll be like, "Oh, I was one of the first 20 people here." So and
Totally.
we'll definitely reward you guys for that.
Totally. But the answer to this question is that credits are 1 second of audio. So a 10-minute episode would be 600 seconds. So you should be able to make 4 10-minute podcasts on that monthly credit allotment, and then have a little bit carried over. The main thing right now that's probably eating up your credits, so just message me in Intercom, and we currently replenish all credits for faulty generations. So feel free to ping me. But a big part of the big improvement that Pearson's talking about, we'll make it so that these things are so that your edits and your credit consumption is way more efficient, and that there's no more surprises.
Right. Yeah. So 1 credit equals 1 second of audio generated. So anything up to that is free. So like we have this kind of mental model about, we want to just give you as many features pretty much that are included on your plan, and just only charge for like the actually computationally expensive part of like generating audio. So like hosting is free. We don't, like, if you want to generate a podcast on some other platform, or whether it's traditionally recorded or AI, you still have to host it somewhere. Normally a hosting provider costs you $20 a month. And there's all these other things that you kind of have to do. And we have this idea that, hey, we'll do everything. And when you're creating and you're actually producing things, does it make sense for us to be like, hey, that's when it charges with the credits. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're the guy that does the Christian podcast to inmates. That's awesome. Um, very cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
So I'm looking right now at like our Explore podcast pages. I always love checking out like what everybody's creating. And right now, like on the top, this one's kind of sad. 7 episodes about a podcast called MyDogDied.com.
Oh,
So it's a bunch of short stories from people all over who have lost a beloved pet and how they manage their grief. So MyDogDied.com.
love it.
That's sweet.
It just like
Yeah.
it just blows my mind like every time I'll see it. Because I think and Jason made this point. I remember like first time I met, he was like it's like I call it Jevon's paradox for podcast, which is like because the friction of creating podcast goes low, you can create something for just like the most random interesting thing. So I always like like finding this like very unique podcast, is just so awesome because nobody. I mean, maybe someone would, but like, just imagine like sitting down. Okay, I'm going to devote 3 months of my life to make a podcast about dogs dying, right? But somebody was like, oh, I mean, they went through this journey and they were like, I want to share my story. So, I mean, people create blogs about it, right? So, podcasts are like the new blog almost, right? They're like, oh, rather than writing this two paragraph blog, I'm just going to make a podcast about it. So it's so
Totally.
cool. I think, yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I think it's a very interesting comparison to the blogs. Well, I think we see a lot of people doing that, which is just like, blogs were big, got super saturated. There's so many of them, and next came
Yes.
newsletters, and now there's sort of this same push into Spotify, YouTube, and finding ways to plug in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What's cool about it is that people are converting blogs, but they're adding a dimension to it that I didn't foresee. So like we had, I just interviewed a customer. You can go to jellypod.ai/customer-stories where all these come out. But the most recent one is this cool person. She is a executive at Johns Hopkins, and she's also the founder of this leadership community called Inquisitive Leader. And she's got a blog that she's been publishing that people really engage with. And your tone comes through when you write, but when you put your voice to it, you put your intonation, you put your backstory, so that word choice begins to evolve based on your backstory. It can really make that content come to life and put a little bit more of you that wouldn't have really been possible to read.
Right. Yeah. Does she embed the podcast within the blog then? Is that?
It's a good question. I think right now I haven't checked. She might actually. Or she might just have a dedicated Spotify channel. Her main goal is to get people while they're in the car on the way in.
Yeah. But I mean, I think you mentioned that, but I think that is a very powerful way to stand out as a blog even, right? You can embed a podcast because most people don't think about it. They just do text and right in this age of, you can just generate text. It's so hard to get ranked on Google with blogs and stuff, unless you had like a 5-year-old domain or something. And so I think adding those audio snippets, really makes your blog stand out. So I think it almost becomes like a requirement, I feel like in some ways. So.
Totally. And I think it rewards like all types of media. So you can also get your MP4, your video from JellyPod, or your YouTube video once you uploaded it, and embed that as well. And I imagine all of those things will be a boost to the page.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm curious, like, if anyone here is like doing the audiogram stuff. Like, one of the thoughts that I had and questions I guess I have for the audience is that if they like the whole auto selection of the color, the background color. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. You just put the image upload. You upload your episode image, and then it just averages out like what's the average color of the background. But then sometimes if like you have an episode image or podcast cover art that is all just like one color with some black text in it, it just kind of looks weird. So I'm curious if anybody wants to ever share with us on the chat, like what your experience is with the background color on the autograms. I'd love to hear because it's something that's like really hard to measure beyond just somebody saying, hey, can I customize the color? Which makes sense. But I'm curious about that, honestly. But also, I see this thing. Mark just messaged us.
Oh yeah. Um,
Yeah. So yeah, totally. Just keep an eye out in the next few days or so. Pretty big overhaul here. We have to be really careful about how we're rolling this out because it impacts a lot of things across the board. Um, but yeah, we're building something where essentially, rather than just having the single button to regenerate audio, with if you see that there's this caching there as well, but it's kind of confusing. It's expensive. Most of the times you make a change, we have to regenerate the whole block, your whole podcast. But you'll be able to, going forward very soon, just regenerate a single speech block, so that you can kind of tweak and test the words, like debugging, like you mentioned, until you find something that you like and it sounds good, especially if there's artifacts in that audio that's been generated that is, not desirable. Like the AI just starts to scream for some reason. I've heard that, and it's
mm,
really funny, but it's also really scary when you're listening to a podcast and it just starts screaming at you. You're like, "Whoa, that's wild." um,
I've only
mm.
this never happened to me, but I remember hearing that one episode. We talking about that one episode like
yeah,
from like a month or two ago. Yeah, that was wild. Um, I'm really happy that doesn't happen anymore, or at least it hasn't happened in a while. Um,
Yeah,
and
for
also just
sure. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah.
I was going to say,
No,
just to
no, go
put a
ahead.
quick
Sorry, Jason.
bow on it, just to give you credit, Bilal. Also, the voice preview is a big part of this. So it's like you'll get a very honest understanding of how the two voices will sound up front. So don't just play around there until you get two hosts that you generally like,
Yeah.
and then go into the script and start playing around more.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna mention. I think that is our one-two punch about this the host preview, which is like available now. I think that helps. But what Pearson's working on, and we are all excited about that. That's gonna be a huge change. So that's why we want to make sure it's perfect. But when it is, it'll let you do all this granular like regeneration per block, which hopefully will address all of this and really get those 2,500 credits or whatever credits like 10 times as far. So yeah, it's coming.
Just got a new question about clones, and if a clone is recorded as serious, can it be tweaked to be animated? And unfortunately, no. So clones aren't like, they're not like they haven't learned who you are and every like shade of emotion who you are. So if you clone like in 3 minutes, they're not going to know how you sound happy, how you sound sad, how you sound excited. They're really only going to know the part of you, that one side of you that you've made available in that clone recording. So if you give a very serious or a very slow or a very pensive or a unfilled clone sample, it's going to be that version of you all the time. And what's funny is there's a lot of people who use JellyPod who are bilingual. So they'll have two clones, one in each language, because it's going to, I speak English with an American accent. I speak like Russian with a slightly American accent. But when my English clone speaks Russian, it's like a huge American accent. So things like that, where you've got to clone
Mm.
specific to that language because you've learned to almost have two voices in that case. So it's going to very much mimic what you give it.
totally. And I think like here too, it's like if you just want the word choice, if you put some exclamation points in the actual text, maybe it'll become a little bit more animated, and it'll make some assumptions about what you would sound like when you're more animated. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, Jason, I'm curious, like, do you recommend like people have a consistent voice sample when they record, or what if they do like up and down and have a range of emotions? Would that come through if they like have a happy voice and then a serious voice? If they do that, does that give it more range in the clone, or will they just pick an average out of both?
I've seen good results from both. When I do it myself, I do try to give it a little bit of a range, but if you give it too much of a range, it's sort of like the background color picker, right? It just picks the average.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
So if you're if you really want your if you really want your serious clone, you really want your animated clone, you might consider doing both. One that talks very fast and is very bubbly. But to answer your question, Paul, I do try to give it some range, but too much of it, and it doesn't know what to focus on.
Makes sense.
And I see this question in here. It's just pretty much an issue around Bible verses. So with the colon or the verse, it's like, so putting it on the screen here. It's interesting that if you were to type it out, James verse 10, it still will say it as James 2.10. I wouldn't expect that. So maybe that's, I don't know. Let us know if the next time you've actually made that change.
Does the pronunciation guide help with that, or like if
it
you
should? But the pronunciation guide, what's interesting about this in this use case, it's that it'll be a pretty much exact match. So it's like if you have a verse, it's like James verse 10 versus James verse 11. That's not going to match, and so it's a little bit harder there. But so my suggestion here is that just if you see this, type it out if you can, and hopefully the model just gets better with this over time. Hopefully it will.
Yeah. I am surprised though. James verse 10 literally comes out as that's something interesting. Wonder if it's because of the context in the model or something.
Right.
Yeah, if it's inferring, like it already thinks what verse is, and it knows that verse, and it's like referring to it specifically, which would be wild because it never does something like that I've seen.
Right.
Yeah, just message us so we can recreate this. And but the pronunciation guide and spelling things out phonetically is always going to be your best bet.
Right. And
a shout out from Franny. I want to give Franny a shout out because she's now, I think this is now her second or maybe even
I think more than second. I've seen, Franny. Yeah.
I think Franny is like, she's
always
great.
Here. Great.
And
welcome.
I always have a good pat on the back. So thanks, Franny.
And then Patrick, I see Patrick saying here about how much influence is quality of recording playing to voice clones. It plays into it for sure, but Bilal just released something last week where we try to reduce background noise automatically using AI. So it shouldn't impact if you have a lot of background noise or at least subtle background noise, it should be removed. So we've seen pretty good results from this so far. So Franny's here every Wednesday.
Hell yeah. I love that. Go Franny, go. And just to put one last thing on this, on the background noise thing, what's really cool about this as well, and I don't know if some people like aren't quite ready to experiment with this, but the guest clones do work with a phone. So that's a big part of what we're trying to unlock here is the ability, you can invite a guest, they're on the go, they're in an airport, right? They're about to hop into a flight for 3 hours. You're not going to be able to get their thoughts on something. Get the voice clone while they're waiting in line, and maybe they'll be able to review an episode when they land.
If you get somebody to create a guest clone in line boarding an airplane, please let us know. Like, I will give you a lot of credits because that would be crazy.
I'm doing that next flight. Give me those credits.
It was cool, and I know we're at time now. I just want to point this out because I monitor Reddits and subreddits, and it's this morning I woke up to some notifications about there was like a subreddit about there's like some grad student subreddit and how they're using JellyPod to like convert lectures and stuff for themselves, and I think others in their peer group. And so that was a cool shout out there. I couldn't connect the dots on like which one they were doing, but that was a cool
Which
thing.
Subreddit? Do you know?
I'd have to double check.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it was like something like grad students. It was a grad student talking about it, but
that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Sweet. Cool. And we're pretty much there at half hour. So
any parting questions, parting thoughts?
But if not, just right. If you come across this, we're JellyPod, AI Podcast Studio. Join our Discord. There's a big community there that's growing, and people help each other out and share their podcasts. So join our Discord. Check out JellyPod. We have a free trial or a free plan as well, so you don't have to you can check us out before you commit. And yeah, we're building a lot of things coming down the pipeline very soon. So excited.
If you're a customer, reach out, and we're giving 2,000 credits to anybody that hops on and does a little 10-minute customer story about what it is you're doing.
Sweet. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well,